Rademacher. Scott is a researcher and field investigator with Red Dirt Cryptids of Oklahoma and a paranormal investigator with SEK Bordertown Paranormal. His journey investigating the paranormal began with a personal Bigfoot experience, and he's devoted his time to cryptids and the paranormal ever since. He was asked to join the I'm messing up now, the Bordertown group in 2024 as their in-house cryptid expert. Scott also founded the Facebook group Kansas Sightings in 2021. The page is dedicated and a forum for people to share personal stories and legends based in Kansas involving ghosts, Bigfoot, cryptids, UFOs, and the supernatural. Where is Scotty? Oh, fun. Can somebody go run and get Scotty?
Scotty doesn't know.
Maybe we all chant his name. I'll go grab him. Everybody hold tight. Think Bigfoot thoughts.
Pick up the mic and just carry on a monologue.
You're not going to be on
So what about cryptids? So do we know anything about cryptids? Oh.
All right, I'm going to pass this off to the guy who may or may not be in SEK Bordertown Paranormal anymore. We shall see.
All right. Okay, just want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Scott Rademacher, and I'm moderating this panel today for everybody. So background on myself is I'm a member of the Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations based out of Enid, Oklahoma. I'm also a newly member of the SEK Bordertown Paranormal Society. And I also run the Kansas Sightings on Facebook. Just also want to thank the panelists that are here today to take part in the discussion, Bigfoot and cryptids and forbidden ancient history to modern times. So let's get started here and just have everybody introduce themselves and how they got into Bigfoot and cryptids and why do you stay involved in it?
I really don't do much with cryptids, but I have had a lot of encounters with them, and I talk to the big guy next to me or other friends to try to figure out what the heck did I see or what did I envision in dreams. So that's what I have a very big interest in it. I think I may have seen some Bigfoot, but I have no proof because when I switched to my video on my phone, I could not get back to the same position that they were in, and I lost everybody. So I'm like, I don't know, but I saw something weird.
Hi, my name is Robert Brevo. I'm out of Arkansas. As far as when I got interested in cryptids, I've been interested in cryptids probably my entire life, along with the paranormal and other weird things like that. Been doing investigations into that and some other stuff for over 20 years. Work on building profiles as far as biological as to the origins of these things, and just have an all-around interest in it. And yes, I've seen a few weird things too, including Bigfoot.
Hi, I'm Tina Scout from Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'm with River Valley Paranormal. I've been interested in paranormal and cryptids for pretty much my entire life. Mostly, I'm into the ghost side of the paranormal, doing investigations and stuff like that. But I have encountered my little bit of the cryptid side, and so that kind of just gets a little bit more of the interest in there.
My name is Roth Christopherson. I am with Road Trip Paranormal. I've been doing this probably with the team for about 11 years. I've always been that guy for many years that said this is ridiculous. It's not real. They're not real. Until I spent some time in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and now I'm on the fence about the whole thing. So normally spend most of my time on the paranormal side until now. So it's this is piquing my interest.
Just a minute, you don't believe it. I'm Jason Roberts with Road Trip Paranormal. Just like Rose said, we were out into Tahlequah, Oklahoma on a case investigating a house that was kind of off the highway, back in the woods. And we spent probably 5 different trips going out there, spending several nights out there, tent camping, since there's nowhere for us to go. Since the house we were investigating it was falling apart, had no electricity or water or anything. So we were tent camping in it sometimes in 21-degree weather. And every time we went out there, we got more and more activity from Sasquatch. They kept getting closer each visit we got there, to the point where we started having full-on encounters and seeing it for real with our own eyes. Of course, Roth here missed every single moment of seeing it with his own eyes, so he still won't believe it, but I'm the guy that keeps trying to make him believe.
I'm Jason, and I'm not like a big expert on anything, but I try to study a little bit on the stuff outside, like Bigfoots or rakes or anything, just because if something starts going down, I'm going to be the first one to run. So, yeah.
What was the question again?
Who are you and why are you in this?
I'm Eric Schrader with Red Dirt Cryptid. And is this on? Can you hear me?
I mean, I can hear you.
And I've been into this field since Tuesday. I'm not done. February 22nd, 2022.
Hey, my name is Clint, and I'm with Oklahoma Paranormal Information Syndicate, which is a big word to say. And I'm not really into Bigfoot so much, but I'm into the idea that things exist that we haven't found yet. Animals. I think the animals.
All right, well, thank you for that. So one of the first questions is, you have one of the most interesting cases that you've been involved with, or like a troublesome case?
Go ahead.
Troublesome or interesting? Like I said, when we were down in Oklahoma, because basically all of our encounters has happened in Oklahoma. We did have some interesting things happening around Kingman, Kansas, with some sightings and stuff like that. We did cast a print out there, but it was in Oklahoma, where each visit that we went down there to investigate, we actually stopped worrying about the house. We kind of went down there to see if we could get any interaction with this Bigfoot Sasquatch that was actually coming near the very first night we were ever there. Our founder was laying out by the fire, trying to keep that going so he didn't freeze. Something heavy walked past him, and he said he couldn't keep his eyes open. He couldn't get himself to look at it, but something came over to the tent and was pushing in on the tent and kind of banging on him and everything. but he said it sounded bipedal. Well, as each time we went out there, they got closer, and we started finding out it was more than just one. There were several that was around us. We woke up in the middle of the night to the sounds of screams all the way around the tree line. And there was one evening when we were sitting by the fire. This is probably like our 4th trip out there, whereas I was the only one standing up, and I just happened to look over, and this was about, I don't know, about midnight or so, and I happened to look over at the house that's livable, but we didn't have permission to be inside, of course, but there's a light pole next to it, and I saw the creature actually round the corner of the building and was actually heading our way. And for some dumb reason, my first reaction was to smack my friend to get his attention, and then I took off running toward it. And I don't know why, I don't know what I was gonna do when I got there, except that maybe freak it out a little bit, because it stopped in its tracks and I saw it turning, maybe because he saw this little guy running after him, I don't know. But I saw it turn and run and go down the embankment, and you could just hear it crashing all the way down. And on our last night we were ever there, is we had an encounter. It was about this time they some of the guys brought an RV because they couldn't tent camp out there. Road. You had to pamper yourself in an RV while we all slept in tents. But as at 2 o'clock in the morning, we were actually, some of us went back into town to get some drinks or something. 3 of them were in the RV when they noticed something out just beyond the RV. So they turned off the light, and they could see a Bigfoot squatted down and actually running its hands in the wet grass, just watching them. So when they got out of the car or out of the RV, they stumbled out, and it had already disappeared. So by the time I got there, we were all rushing out to the woods to try and see what we could see. And as soon as we got into the tree line and was going down, we heard banging coming from the house behind us. So we turned around to run that way, and we were like, oh crap, there's more than one. They're getting our attention so that the other one could run away. And it just kept getting closer to us each time we went. And it was a fascinating place. I wish we could go back. Can't, but I wish we could. But that was an interesting case that still is in my head every day.
Anybody else?
So I know there's a lot of people here that are really interested in this, but I mean, for years, guys, I didn't believe in this at all. And when we were in Tahlequah, and I'm glad you guys are up here so I can hear your stories, because you guys are the ones doing it. I just witnessed it. When we first got there, we were setting up in this property. It's like a big square of forest, and we're inside the center of it, like a bald spot. And it had a horseshoe drive. And as soon as we got there, we started setting up inside the horseshoe. And so you can, think of a horseshoe dirt road. And on the opposite side of the dirt road was one of the houses that had burnt down and had a bunch of activity there. And so on the paranormal side, of course, we're setting up recorders. We had a bunch of tables out there just like this with food on it, drinks, coolers, everything you could think of. Just started to get dark. They called us over to film and to do some stuff at that house. And we're probably, I'm thinking 45 yards away maybe. And there is nobody else in the campgrounds, nobody. But they had heard where we were setting up tents and stuff, and they had set recorders out, and I didn't know that at the time. And so anyways, we all went over there and started doing some investigating, and we were getting all kinds of stuff. Well, later on, I can't remember if it was that night or the next day, one of the guys, I think from the film crew or somebody, was listening back on their recorders. And this is what really got me, is we have, and I don't know if you even have it on you today, we have footage of what sounded like a gorilla walking around our camp. So I guess where our tents were, and there was some tents over in that area. There was some tables and a fire pit and chairs. And I mean, it was literally like, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a dog. It wasn't a cat. And I just sat there and was floored because what I heard was something that wasn't even close to being around us. And that was the first hour we were there. And everything intensified for the next 4 days.
I really never have fully investigated like a lot of these people have invested so much time. I've been on a couple of small, I'll just call it investigations for cryptids, or actually more so for Sasquatch. And I was in Mena, Arkansas, probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Just for that purpose, I wanted to try to communicate with one. I had heard that there was a lot of them in that particular area. So basically late that night, I followed the path. There were 2 of us, and we set out along this path near a field, and there was a picnic table. So we kind of sat there, and my experiment was I wanted to see if I could contact them using a spirit box, because that's my favorite paranormal investigation tool. I want to talk to them. I want to talk to the spirits and all that. And I thought, well, maybe I could communicate with them through spirit box. Well, twice within a matter of like 5 minutes, I had brand new batteries in both, brand new batteries in it, practically brand new, just out of the package. And I'm sitting there asking a few questions. The next thing I know is my spirit box started low pitch, and then it went to a high pitch squeal, and then it just quit. I'm like, well, that really sucks. So changed the batteries in the dark, because I really didn't have anything else. So I was changing them in the dark. I said, okay, guys, let's try this one more time. So I turned the spirit box back on, and I got one little noise that came out of it and made no sense to me. But then all of a sudden, that squeal came back, low pitch, and then as high as it could go, and then poof, batteries were dead again. I'm like, great. And I'm talking to the one person that was sitting there with me, and I happened to look over to my right, and I would say not more than maybe 10 feet away, there was a big old tree. Must have been maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet in diameter, maybe a multiples of trees or whatever. But right next to it, I see this 8-foot shadow right next to the tree, which was darker than the tree itself. And I watched, I said, I think we're being watched. And all of a sudden, this thing disappeared right behind the tree, no noise, no sounds, nothing, and it was gone. So that's probably been my closest experience with. I'm thinking, it was a Sasquatch that was just trying to communicate with me, but I was looking for them, but I never expected to really see something like that. And I'm not even going to say it was a Sasquatch. All I know is it was something really, really big, and it was staring at us for a good probably 5-10 minutes before I noticed it, and then it just kind of disappeared. So it was it was a really cool experience. I'll just say it that way.
We've got a couple of areas that we're actively investigating right now. They're actually in Missouri, just above where I live in Arkansas. And one of them is, it's kind of funny because it's a deer hunter's camp. And we go out there, and it's me and my buddy Richard. And he's one of the deer hunters who uses that camp as part of his family. And so I'm known for, I don't do the yells, I don't do the beating on the trees and all that silly stuff, because I'm like, number one, you don't know what you're saying. So eating my own words. We go out there and we had shown up and there were tracks in the grass and leaves taken off into the woods, and we're kind of getting the feeling that these things were there just before we got there and they took off. So we get about 100 yards, 50 to 100 yards into the woods. And I looked at Richard and I said, you know how I'm always saying I'm never going to yell and I'm never going to beat on a tree? Well, I'm going to yell. And he's like, really? And I said, yeah. I said, I don't know why. Someone just told me I really need to do it just to see what happens. So sure enough, I do the big yell. Sound probably really annoying and really silly to everything that's out in the forest. No. Not on the mic, definitely. So anyway, I do it, and within just a few seconds, boom, we're getting an answer from back over in this holler area off to our left. He looks at me and he said, that's the one I've been hearing up here. I said, really? A few seconds later, we get another call that's way over on the right. And he said, I've never heard that one before, and that one sounds weird. And he kind of looks at me real stern and he goes, I think you pissed him off. And I said, no, that's not the feeling I got. It was just a feeling of, okay, we're aware that you're here. This is where we're at. We're communicating a little bit. That was about all the communication we got out of it. But a lot of investigations and a lot of research out in the field, you'll be out there for hours and nothing interesting happens. You're just walking around like you lost a contact and you're looking in the ground. You're trying to find tracks. And, everybody thinks that every track that you find out there is castable, and they're not. It's probably 1 in 100 is worth casting. But there's a lot of really weird, interesting things that we see out there. Just not everything's that noteworthy, unfortunately. I know they're playing Marco Polo with me.
I don't know if you can hear that. We're talking about, are they playing Marco Polo with us?
Yeah. That's probably what it was. I was yelling Marco and they were yelling Polo.
Hey,
Yeah. That's always what I'm afraid of, is that it's mating calls.
Anybody else got anything to add? All right, so one of the biggest debates I feel is probably whether or not Bigfoot, Sasquatch is actually a flesh and blood creature, or is it interdimensional? And you feel that's the same with all cryptids, or just, Bigfoot, and why do you feel that way?
Okay. So the short answer is yes. That's a difficult one because a lot of this has to do with the amount of evidence that we've collected. We've collected a lot of tracks, a lot of eyewitness testimony, and a lot of questionable photographs, some good photographs, some good video. There's a lot of inconsistencies between one video to the next, even with one track to the next. So I don't buy into the Gigantopithecus story. I think if it's flesh and blood, it's probably closer related to us than anything else. The problem with it being strictly flesh and blood, and I come from the old cryptozoology camp where everything's flesh and blood and everything paranormal is just silly. But I got into the paranormal because I started witnessing that with Bigfoot. So you run into stuff where you're following Bigfoot tracks and they suddenly disappear in the middle of the field, or they start in the middle of the field. That's really weird. There's no way to explain it. Orbs showing up in the forest at night whenever you're looking for Bigfoot, flashes of light, strange sound, the sound of babies crying. That pops up again and again with paranormal and with Bigfoot. So the question actually has several answers. One, I think, yes, there is a flesh and blood cryptid Bigfoot that has supernatural elements that we don't necessarily understand. And there may be other things out there that are far more paranormal that are trying to convince us that they're Bigfoot. I don't know. That's a possibility. That's kind of where I stand on that.
So what's your thoughts on them using portals? Because I've been hearing that a lot too.
Is it possible? Yes. But I gotta see it to believe
Yeah.
it.
That's some people's answer to how they can disappear from so fast
Maybe,
from one spot to another.
maybe, but again, like I said earlier, I'm more of a scientifically based.
Right.
So when we get into quantum physics and stuff like that, that's where I've got to see. If I'm walking around out in the woods and all of a sudden it vaporizes, I'm like, okay.
Okay, I have one for you. We had somebody on our team that his job was to do land surveys. And him and his team were out in the middle of the forest doing a land survey. And
Way
out in the middle of nowhere. And out of the middle of nowhere pops this man walking through the forest with a suit and a briefcase. Out of nowhere. Just traipsing through the forest. Going off. Poof. Disappears. Comes out of nowhere, disappears into nowhere. Where'd he come from? Where'd he go?
It sounded like a traveler.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Mhm.
That's a whole nother realm you're getting into, again, quantum physics and stuff like that.
True, but
He was thinking that maybe he was a Bigfoot and that he turned in, and that he was actually a shapeshifter who turned into something that was recognizable to a human and then disappeared. Is what his idea of that was, that actually a Bigfoot is actually a shapeshifter who just shifts.
Octopi do it.
yeah, I think they are. I do agree with you. I think they're interdimensional creatures, but they are flesh and blood. I don't think they're just an animal from the past that nobody's ever able to see or clearly or find regularly. Yeah, I agree with you that the portal potential aspect of the portals and/or shapeshifters. Shapeshifters can turn themselves into pretty much anything, and maybe that's what they are too. What's that?
That would explain them disappearing.
Yeah, exactly. They just they walk behind a tree and they're gone. I mean, I'll throw a paranormal story out there that something that we had witnessed. It was up in Fayette, Missouri, Central Methodist University. There was a battle there, Civil War battle, or skirmish, I guess you'd call it. But we're looking out across the quadrangle, and there were these several trees in front of some buildings, and we actually witnessed a horse and a rider just emerge from behind a tree, goes across the field, and then goes past another tree and disappears. And we're like, what the heck was that? And then a few minutes later, the same horse and rider went back the other way, came out of the tree out of nowhere, and then went right back behind another tree, the one that came from originally, and just disappeared. Now, to me, it's like that. Okay, that's impossible. Based on what? Based on our physics, our known physics. So, portal, possibly. I don't disagree that that's not a possibility out there. That we have wormholes that have been detected. Can't there be portals as well?
I'll make this even more confusing.
There we go. I like it.
All right, so if humans, when they pass away, we can have ghosts of humans. We've had people talk about a ghost of cats. How come we can't have ghosts of Bigfoot? Wouldn't that explain some of the appearing, disappearing? If it was a flesh and blood creature originally, and then now we've got human ghosts that are walking around inside buildings. How come the ghost of Sasquatch can't be walking around through the forest?
And along with that, maybe they're prehistoric ghosts.
That's always a possibility. We can speculate all day long. We can come up, every one of us can come up with our own thing. And we might all be right and we might all be wrong. The thing is, we haven't really collected enough true evidence. We've got tracks, we've got eyewitness testimony. The one that nobody likes, but is probably the truth, is we're going to have to bring in one alive or one dead to really prove one way or the other whether they exist or not. And that's what where we're going to see zoology take over, taxonomy is going to take over, and we're going to start to try and figure out what these things are. Nine chances out of 10, it's probably going to be a human of some form or a distant relation of some type. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Go ahead.
Kind of along with that, I was just wondering if you ever heard of the feral hog and feral human theory.
There's actually been a whole lot of talk about that lately. So yeah, especially when you get up into the Appalachians and mountainous areas like that, where they talk about, and even in native lore, where they talk about people who just decided they just want to go back out into the wilderness, and just like hogs, I guess, they think we're going to grow all that hair and everything back. But I have a problem with that, because it's not going to make your feet bigger, and it's not going to make you bigger. So, I mean, again, do we know? No, there's a lot of speculation.
Bigfoot and hillbilly?
Could be.
You haven't seen that one?
Like hogs, when they go feral, they grow hair and they grow bigger and they grow tough.
Yeah.
Whereas in captivity, they don't. And it's the same theory as humans without the field. They would grow hair and grow bigger and go feral.
I have never heard that.
It's a theory.
Hillbilly.
Not
It's,
proven.
it's a theory. Come on now.
If that were the case, I would.
I was gonna say, if that were the case, then, but the problem is that people will see them and then they'll just disappear. And I mean, it's a great theory, but I mean, unless while they're out there in that feral, native form or whatever, they start learning about nature, and maybe they found the fairies or the fae or whatever, and they said, hey, if you run this way, you can get out of trouble quick. You run behind, but it's got to be this kind of a tree, it's got to be this size, it's got to be this shape, and then poof, that's where the portals are. I don't know, but that's the only drawback I have. Great theory, but I can't buy that one personally, and I'm not a Bigfoot hunter. I've been a paranormal researcher for nearly 18 years, so yeah.
So I do have a question. Do we have any hunters here? Okay, so another Tahlequah deal, because that's the only place I've ever been, I swear. No. So Jason will probably take this mic from me here in a minute, so I don't mess it up, because there's nothing worse than fibbing. So Tahlequah, I don't know exactly how big, the land that we're on. I know it was quite large. And on the boundaries, there were barbed wire fences. And not myself, but Jason's friends, family, his dad out here in the audience was out there. And I didn't go with them that time, but they found hair that was on some barbed wire. Barbed wire, or is it barbed wire. At first, I know Jason spoke with the owners and was like, hey, do you have any cattle out there? Do you have any horses? And they were like, no. Well, what about behind it? Well, we own that land, I think, as well. So there was no animals out there. So I think Jason had taken that hair, put it into a Ziploc bag. He had it checked out, is that right? And it came back. It's like, yeah, I guess, or did they visually look at it? And it came back unmarried or something. So what's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so we kind of have this thought that something is either biologically natural or supernatural. All right, so biologically natural is like you and me, and we can flesh and blood and nothing weird going on. Well, some of them have something weird going on. Then supernatural is something that's going to be more spirit-based, but can take on the form of something more physical. There's another term that we rarely ever use, and it's called preternatural. And it's the opposite of supernatural. It is something that is physically based and biological, but has some unexplainable elements to it that seem to be supernatural. So Bigfoot definitely is the number one that falls into that. So then you've got Bigfoot, you've got Dogman, you've got a whole lot of stuff that falls into Native American lore that is referred to quite often as being preternatural. So it's biological, it leaves tracks, it leaves hair, it eats meat, it does this, it does that, everything a living thing can do, biologically living thing can do. But there's a supernatural element that none of us understand. So that's kind of where I stand on that. It's not necessarily truly biological. Like I said, I came from a cryptozoological background where everything was flesh and blood. But the more you investigate into that, the more you see more of the supernatural pop into that. So we have to make allowances for that. We can't just discount the supernatural. We have to add it in somewhere because it's part of the evidence.
So is finding hair?
Is finding hair that's unknown, is that starting to become more common?
Yes, yes. We're finding a lot of that, and you've got like Dr. Melba Ketchum, who started doing the DNA, the Bigfoot DNA stuff. The problem is a lot of the hair that's recovered doesn't have roots in it, doesn't have the actual DNA that is needed. So it's hard to get in there and try and figure out the genetics that are behind it.
We had a question out here.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the same, just a shape-shifting skinwalker is like a Native American thing, and a shapeshifter might be a loose term that we would call it. Yeah, it's the same thing.
There is
Right.
a ton of AI.
AI is doing a lot of things.
AI is in a lot of stuff now. I mean, you can't, it's hard. It's everywhere now. Even in just simple stuff like flowers and houses and stuff, they've got it all. You don't even know what you're looking at anymore. They've got it in everything. So you got to be careful. It's hard enough in what we do. Just 10 years ago, they started with the ghost stuff and putting it in everything, but now it's even worse, just within general stuff. But yeah, the shape shifting and skinwalker, it's the same thing, just a looser term with that. Yeah. Oh my God, what did you talk about?
Well, now we got to hear.
Anybody else got anything?
Oh, the baby peacock. No, that's AI. No, the little white baby peacock. No.
Oh, and I was gonna say, if you want to investigate ghosts, Bigfoots, anything, like I've got the Samsung S23, and you can take a picture of the moon. It almost looks like you're there. So imagine like if you're trying to take a picture of something in the dark, and it's going to basically try to correct the picture and make it look like something. So yeah, I would suggest hold your camera up, something like what Adrian's got over there, because it's going to be get one that's not really a digital camera, just something that takes regular film. Because if you try to submit something that looks like that, and they see, oh, you took it on a phone that has AI or helps self-correcting, they're going to kick it out, no matter if it was real or not. So, just that's the only thing I have to contribute.
Let me throw one more thing in there. We see a lot of game camera footage that keeps popping up, and people are saying, oh, well, this is Bigfoot, that's Bigfoot. 99% of those are bears that happen to be at a weird angle and have the mange. It is really common in bears and wolves and coyotes to come up with the mange, and you'll have people that'll swear up and down, oh, well, this is Dogman, or this is Bigfoot. And it couldn't possibly be, a bear, or it couldn't be that. You have to understand, it's not like these animals pose for their photographs. When those cameras go off, they're at the weirdest angle you have ever seen. And never take one photo as evidence. You need a photo before and a photo after. So, and you'll see this too a lot with, somebody will show a photo on Facebook and they'll be like, well, if you look right here in between these three trees where it's really dark, you can see that. I want to see the photo before and the photo after. That's the big thing.
Okay, so we're gonna move on here with some other questions about how you feel that it's changed over the years in investigations, and is there any way that it could advance, over the next 5 years? And do you have a prediction for like the next 5 years?
Can I go? Yeah. Technology right now is advancing with our cameras and detections, motion sensors, and then yet social media with communicating, getting our ideas or our experiences, Facebook pages, YouTube channels, just giving people an opportunity to come together and do ParaCon in here in Haney. And this is pretty new with what we're doing now, right? With the social medias. So the next 5 years is going to double, triple. It's just going to keep going. And that's what I think.
So I've watched a few of these shows, where you spend hours on the TV and they're in the middle of nowhere and they're in the forest, and 10 more commercials later and he's right there. But, they haven't quite gone around the tree yet. But, you guys that do these investigations and stuff out there, and they're there, you've seen it, right? So you guys talk about somehow being able to catch these guys. Why not? I know this might sound really stupid, but why not have some farmer sitting around that's like a crop duster or something? They own the land out there. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Find out who does, and do some type of powder or something that he's right there, because for the last 6 commercials, he's there. Fly that plane in, have him drop something that's like glow in the dark or something, and it's going to hit him if you do a half a mile. And now you've got something you can follow.
Cost.
There's too many people that's millions of dollars.
No, I'm with you. I mean, if
why
we get a
not do
millionaire to
something
back
like
us
that?
up, that's always something that can be done. But there's
We need to
logistics.
talk. because-
Yeah, there's logistics to it, and then there's cost, but it can absolutely be done. It could possibly be done by drone. Maybe we could come up with something that it could do by drone. There's a lot of different possibilities.
I think the future also, at some point, I'm thinking satellite imagery. Heck, they can read a postage stamp, from space. Why can't we do some kind of surveillance with, looking for cryptids? Well, that's different. That's not a cryptid. It should be. I think it's death. It should be bury these things. But anyway, no. But it's a good point. I'm really trying not to laugh at that one. But okay. But yeah, I think satellite imagery, and I think we're eventually going to get to that point where, some billionaire, they're going to come up with some, throw some money out here and say, okay, let's try this. I know they're already looking out into space. It's like, and I know they've already seen stuff, but they won't show us. So why not do something like that?
Let me say this. You're talking about in the next 5 years, how would everything either improve, just get worse, whatever. If we as researchers learn to work together, because right now the Bigfoot community is kind of a joke. There's no community. Yeah, we've got one group over here that's arguing with that group over there that argues with this group over there, and there's no communication back and forth, and it leaves all of the lay people sitting there. I don't know which way to go. I don't know who to believe. I don't know who's full of baloney, which podcast to listen to, which YouTube channel to watch. And I sympathize, because it is a problem, but we need to get where all of us are on the same page. We're working towards the same goal. We're using the same procedures, and we can compare notes. I can go to Ken and I can say, I did this. This is what I got as a result. He can try it, see if he gets the same results. I can get with these guys down here. We can do the exact same type of things. Well, because you hang around with that guy over there and he's weird. No, but anyway, but we have to all get on the same page and really start trying to work together, because the history of cryptozoology, the paranormal, and all that stuff is we don't know how to get along. Hopefully we can change that. And I think if we do within the next 5 years, we might actually make some headway and get somewhere that we haven't gotten in the past 100 years. Yeah, you're right. Egos need to go out the window. There's no experts. I am so sick and tired of hearing people call themselves experts in the field. Walk away. I'm done.
Scotty's an expert.
Well, I don't know about that, but. So anyway, on with the next question here. Do you have any practical advice for anybody that's just starting out in this field?
Don't do it. It's dangerous. Yeah, it's expensive. Once you start buying gear, you're like, I need the next thing. If you're going to do it seriously. Be aware that you need to be careful no matter what you're doing. But if, it's kind of like you'll watch them on these ghost shows and stuff, that they'll go and they'll show up and they spend hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to travel to Thailand to go look at some haunted castle. And the second they get in there, well, it feels really dangerous in here, we're going to leave. They flew all that way just to kind of crap out and go home, and you're left there not knowing any more than you started knowing. If you're going to do this, do it. If you're going to get in the field and you're going to be a part of it, talk with other people who've been doing it for a while and understand it's, there's a lot of hours of being out there and nothing happens.
But learn to be open-minded about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But what happens if they start to geek?
At least get their picture and an autograph.
Yeah. Also, if you're going to get into this field though and start buying gear, I've gone through a lot of trials and errors. I'm sure you guys have. You get this microphone and it turns out to be crap, and you go buy the next better one.
Yeah.
And same thing with cameras, and talk to people who have been there and done that, and get their opinions on whatnot. Right now, I was talking with some people last night with thermal imaging. I have a thermal camera built into my phone, okay? But there's attachments that you can buy for Apple or Android. You plug it into your phone, and it does that for you. But what's the best? Because you can have thousands and thousands of dollars into this right now, and after a short period, you'll have thousands and thousands of dollars in your closet just sitting there, or next year's yard sale. Just take your time and do your research. Look into it. Get people's opinions on what's working for them.
Can I throw a question out? Fine. Okay, thanks. How many here, if they had an opportunity to see a Bigfoot up close, how many people would actually want to do that, or are so afraid that they would turn around and run?
Is there a cage? Is there like a cage between them?
No, I'm just saying, would you walk,
Once in the wild.
if there was something that you knew was there, and would you go towards it or back away from it? Oh, any kind of cryptid or Bigfoot. I'm going to put Bigfoot out there.
I would say not. Meat eater, hello.
But see, I don't believe.
Your meat, it eats. No.
Normally, that's true, but it has happened. But personally, like I said, I did that experiment trying to communicate with them, and then I realized later on, it's like, I don't need a toy to talk to them, because apparently they can communicate telepathically anyway. So, which is good. But I'm actually out there, if I do go out and do some kind of research, even if it's just like a one weekend, in my life or whatever, I'm moving towards them. I am not afraid of them. Now, if they come at me with, claws and throwing things at me or whatever, big things that I can't dodge, I'm going to back off, of course, but I'm actually going to try to go out there. That's my goal, get out there and try to communicate with one of them. That is actually my goal. And I'm not afraid to do it. I'm not afraid to be eaten. If I am, I'll have my video going at the same time. You guys find my camera, okay? Unless they know how to use it.
Yeah, I was wondering like they did about that guy with the bears. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, they eat the camera too, right? But no, I'm not afraid. So thank you for, oops, I'm sorry. Thank you for, there's a handful of you guys, actually half of you said you'd go towards it. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I need a closer up picture, one that's not so blurry.
You
ever see how bad you shake when you zoom?
Better camera.
So, all right, so with this next question, I think we kind of answered this one though. What is the best resource for people who want to dig deeper into this? And I think we just kind of answered that with working with each other.
Yeah.
Does anybody got anything else to add to that?
Question everything that's presented as evidence. Always use your brain. Yeah. Be a critical thinker, As far as, what was the question again now exactly? So,
like a best resource that you
best
have.
resources, education. Become as educated on similar things as you can. If you're really interested in Bigfoot and other cryptids, start learning about similar animals that we actually know about. Look into biology, zoology, taxonomy, comparative anatomy, all those things that are going to be related to that. You can get into quantum physics and, the paranormal and all that. That's going to come along as you get into it. But get your grounding in real science and then start to expand from that. And it's going to help you so much because you're going to be a much more critical thinker. And like I said, talk with some of the weirdos like us that have been doing it for far too long and don't have much of anything else to talk about but Bigfoot, and that's why we're here.
Something else you want to do, I know there's some of you out there that want to start a team, and I think one of the best things I learned from Jason and the other guys, that aren't here that have been doing this as long as him, the first thing they taught me, I think the first year or two I was with them, I could never answer a question. It didn't matter what it was. If they asked me a question, I had to come get them. The reason why is because if you think you know something and you're just sitting there talking the smack with somebody in here and they find out you're wrong, you've just completely lost any incredibility from the team you're on. They can destroy you. They'll never believe anything that you say. So before you answer any questions, just say, hey man, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. That's right. But the worst thing you can do is try to just talk your way through something because there's an engineer out there somewhere that is ready to destroy you.
Anybody else got anything? All right, so is there anything that you think that we're leaving out that needs to be addressed before we try to wrap this up?
You had a question?
Questions?
I just had a quick question. Don't get me wrong, Bigfoot is amazing, but I didn't know if any of you guys had any stories of like other cryptids you've possibly run into. Like I'm thinking like anything cats or anything like that.
Dog man. I came across a large canine animal north of Wichita along Interstate 135, 5:30 a.m. It was foggy. I'm heading north. This beast was on all four legs, facing west. Along, it was standing right next to one of those. It wasn't a mile marker. It was a post with a white reflector. I think it was about 4.5 to 5 feet tall at the shoulders. I slowed down. I didn't I'm going to stop and see if it needs help. I slowed down as I was passing. I wasn't going to speed limit, first of all, because it was foggy. I thought, wow, that was a big, weird looking dog. A mile down the road, same thing, but slightly smaller, doing the same thing, looking to the west, waiting across the road. An offspring, a youngin, I don't know. Crazy. This was in 2019, just north of Park City and Newton. And yeah.
I,
So last year, my buddy Jake over there, he actually brought to my attention the Oklahoma octopus. Something I was like, what?
What?
And this was in a man-made lake in what was it, Tenkiller Lake. Supposedly, it's a huge octopus that is like drowning people, killing people. You know, people dive in and they don't come back up. You know, so we were out there on another case, and we were camping at the campground, you know, at the lake, and just for fun, you know, people paddling by, you know, we'd be like, hey, have you seen the octopus out here? And they just paddle faster and get away from us, you know. You know, Jake was doing that to a lot of people that were coming over to dive in, and before they, you know, they did it, you know, he's just like, hey, have you seen the Oklahoma octopus over here? They just kind of went away from us. So what's your thought? You're from Oklahoma, right? No? Got it wrong? Anybody in Oklahoma? Oklahoma. So what's your thoughts on the whole cryptid? I mean, when did that come about?
Well, it's been a legend for a while, but when you think about it, octopus are saltwater creatures, so I mean.
But it's not necessary. We looked that up. We talked about it here last year at the con, and we came up with that. I believe there are some freshwater octopus, and the other thing we discovered was that some of the limestone will create a salty effect in water. So it is quite possible that if it is a saltwater creature that happens to be there, that it could really, there could be some truth to it. Now, eating people, I doubt that, but nobody's got any photos of that one yet, right?
Well, they're not being eaten. They're just like dragged down and they're found at the bottom of the lake. And they supposedly are great swimmers. You know, they weren't drunk. Even the police were like, they just blew it off as, you know, well, they were just partying, they were drunk and they drowned. But everybody is always saying, and there's a lot of drownings that are happening out there. And people said that they've actually seen the tentacles and everything. So
could very
and
well
they said
be.
it's the size of a horse or a bee-bug. And I'm like, okay. So we sat out there all day in 100-degree weather waiting to see something.
Were you drunk?
No.
Then you should drink.
No.
You should have fished for it.
Well, we had a case later that night. We had to like go take care of that, but to waste time, we were just interested in that.
what were you saying?
But on the other hand, 100-degree plus heat in the water, you have people that are dehydrated, they have heart issues. So that is one of the high incidents of death on the lake. Is you jump in the water, you have that cold shock, you have a heart attack, you die. So that's
Yep.
medical aspect.
You're right.
And you have to consider everything, all possibilities. So, did you want to?
The one thing we have to look at with any cryptids and all of it, we have to look at it case by case. We have a tendency to take everything and put it into one bowl and say, okay, well, this proves it. It's kind of happened with the Missing 411 with David Paulides' books. Love the books. I've got all of them. Read them all. But the problem is you have to go case by case by case. You can't say that because of this large mix, this proves that there's something out there stealing people in national forests. A lot of those cases have been disproven because people went in deeper and looked at, we've got to do that with these cases too.
Okay, mine was in McAllister, Oklahoma. Me and my husband were living there at the time, and we were coming back from the lake movie in McAllister, Oklahoma. And the streets roll up at a certain time, and it just, nobody's out. And we were coming back home, and we saw something crossing the road. At first, we thought it was a big cat. It was black, large, maybe 7 foot long, slung low like a creeping cat that's going to get something. Maybe 4, 5 foot at the shoulders, up off the ground. Shoulders kind of pitch up high, kind of at a triangle. And then we start noticing it's not a cat, it's something else. It's black, don't have a tail. And then it notices that we're stopped now in the road because it's going across the road. It's well lit because it's the main drag down the middle of the main part of town. Well lit. And it looks at us, and it's got a smash-in face, kind of like a bat. And we notice that the shoulder blades are real pronounced, almost like bat that's walking. You know how it does its wings up, and it's kind of pitched. And then my brain starts thinking, what is that? What is that? What is that? Gargoyle is what I come up with in my head, because it wasn't a cat, it wasn't a bat, it wasn't oh, well, what is it, what is it, what is it? And that's just what my brain was spinning, what is it, what is it? And then it was gone. But it walked on 4 all the way across the road. And cat was first thought, bat, gargoyle was where it ended, and then it was gone. Never seen anything like it since. But it was big, it knew we were watching it, it didn't care we were watching it, and we weren't that far from it. So, don't know what it was, but it was big, and it was kind of creepy looking. And
have you had any kind of corroboration with that? Like anybody else?
We've heard about 2 other stories. One didn't quite sound like it. Another one sounded similar to it. It was somebody that had come out of their house because they heard their dog barking at something in their tree. And when they come out, it flew out of the tree. So, and it wasn't far from where we had seen it, but it was in somebody's backyard. So that's the only 2 cases that we've heard. And this was in 1999, that we had seen it. So theirs was in 2000, around 2008, I think, was when they had seen it. So.
Why would hunt for ghosts and not
That would put me off too.
Yeah, I've had numerous experiences over the past 12 years or so in the cryptid area. I know we're up near Lynn, Missouri, which is about 30 miles from Jeff City, and my buddy and I actually saw some strange creature run across the 2-lane highway. It was about 1 a.m., something like that, and just in front of us, and it went by so fast. But what we did see was it was on all 4s, it was stretched out, it was running across the highway. But the crazy thing is that I'll call it the elbows and the knees were reversed. So think of a grasshopper. You know how the back kind of is the opposite of what you'd see a horse run or something like that, or even a dog. So that was pretty crazy. Another one was actually a year ago. This would have been in Oklahoma. I stayed in Bartlesville last year for this conference, and on my way into the area, coming through Oklahoma and driving through the cornfields, basically. I don't even know where I was. I've got it written down somewhere, but up ahead, and there's nobody. There are no cars anywhere. I hadn't seen a car for like 30 minutes. And just driving between, farmland. And up ahead, I see crossing the road, it was just really strange. It was a long black object, and I thought, what the hell's a cow doing out there in the middle of the highway? Well, it probably got loose. No, this was much faster than a cow. It was small. It was between, I think I told you this morning, between the size of a calf and a full-grown cow. And this thing was just running full speed across, and it was solid black. And I realized when I got up a little bit closer, as it was crossing the road, it was actually a big black cat. So almost like just a giant panther, I'll call it, or whatever. But I'm like, I'd never seen one that big. So that was just a year ago. About 2 months ago or something, I told you this one. We were doing an investigation at this abandoned place up in Keithsburg, Illinois. It's on the Mississippi River. It's in northern Illinois. Matter of fact, across the river was Iowa. That's how far north I was. I'm from St. Louis. But we were up there, and on my way back I had to go down to Macomb, Illinois. That's where my hotel was, which was about roughly 30, 40 miles, something like that. I thought, well, I can make it that far, find a hotel, and then I can sleep and come home the next morning. But on my way, I get about 10, maybe 15 miles out of Keithsburg going south. Again, 2-lane, abandoned. There's nobody out at that time driving. And I see something up ahead that I almost squashed, but was something up ahead, and it came from the weeds on the right curve, or the right, what do you call it, the shoulder, thank you. And it looked like a giant inchworm. It was solid black, and I would say maybe 6-8 inches in diameter. And if you would have flattened it out, I would say maybe 2, maybe 3 feet in length. But it came out and it hunched up like an inchworm, and then took like a partial step back, kind of came up, and it raised its head. And just as I was coming up to it, but of course, I'm driving at 60 miles an hour, I just pulled into the other side of the highway and just went around it. I was tired. I was not going to go back and try to figure out what it was. I mean, because it was scary looking. Well, I could have run over it, but it might have exploded, I don't know. But I mean, I don't know what it was. It was just some really, really strange creature. So I've seen a number of things over the past, let's say 10 years or so. I don't know what some of this stuff is. I can't prove it. Stop it. They're hassling me up here. Heckle. But no, I've seen some really, really crazy things, and I'm now waiting to see a Thunderbird. That would be so cool. And here I thought I was in same weekend. I was up in St. Joe, Missouri, and staying at this place, bed and breakfast. And the next morning, I get up and we're trying to find some coffee in the place. The owner lived upstairs in the Airbnb, so he's making coffee. And these other couple came down from upstairs and they said, "Did you see that giant bird on top of that car last night?" And I'm thinking, oh my God, I wonder if it was a Thunderbird, because Thunderbirds are really prevalent in Kansas and, that Missouri border. And I'm only about, 40 miles, 50 miles at the most from the Missouri River. And I'm thinking, oh my God, these poor people, there's a giant bird, and they said, oh yeah, it pooped all over everything. And I'm like, oh man, this is even more gross. So I'm thinking, Thunderbird, I'm talking about Thunderbirds. I'm like, I've heard stories about that. And then they said, I said, where was this? And they said, oh, it's right there, right outside the window. And I stepped over about 2 feet. I'm looking out there. I'm like, holy crap, that's my car. So we finally, somebody took photos of it and they finally showed it to me. And it turns out it was some kind of a giant buzzard. I forget what they, huh? Well, yeah, it was bigger than that. It was something they said that would actually attack cows and stuff. I forget which one it was, but they gave me the name of it. I'm like, holy cow! But it took me two drives through the car wash, which I had to find, which was like 20 miles away. So I'm driving with all this poop all over my car, and I'm like, oh, this is so gross. But I had to go through it twice to get all this stuff off of it. But it was not a Thunderbird. But I do have a photo of it, and it was a hungry bird. It was actually eating a rabbit, I think, on the roof of my car. It was a mess. Yeah, turkey bird. There you go. Turkey bird. There you go. So yeah, so I've seen a lot of stuff. It's crazy.
black vultures, they're known for going after like cats and everything, looking it up and all that, so I'm sure we got it all mess.
It does, but my friend said it does attack cows though too.
Yeah.
And it actually picks up.
Yeah.
It was probably about that big, so almost a little over 2 feet high, about that big around. I think I have it here. But, it's gross.
Well, I think that's about all the questions we have. Some of the key points, I think, one of the best things I think we could do is just basically just work together, share information. You have something that somebody else don't, some equipment that somebody else don't have that you particularly like. Just share information with each other. Just want to thank everybody for participating in the panel tonight. And everybody's going to be sticking around for the rest of the day. So if you have any questions for them, they'll be around here. They got cards. You can ask them any questions you like, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions. I think that's, anybody else got anything? Any questions?
Bigfoot, Yeti, Bottle Snowman, they all the same thing?
Just different names.
Different colors.
All right.
And different colors, yeah.
I have a question real fast. This is for you guys who are experts. So what are these weird things you read about, like sheep squatch and bat squatch and all the different types of Sasquatch, wood squatch, moose squatch,
AI.
squatch?
When you get into those, you start to get into like you got the goat man, the infield horror, the goblins, Hopkinsville. You get into a lot of what we call one-offs or anomalous, where they just pop up. Somebody sees them once, twice, something like that, and then there might be some physical evidence left behind even, but nobody ever sees them again. So there's a lot of weird things. That's where you're starting to get into like where John Keel talked about whenever he was talking about the goblin universe, and you get into quantum physics and multiple dimensions, people walking around in the middle of the forest with suits and ties and briefcases. We don't know. There's a lot of weird things that happen. And you've got a lot of people, eyewitness accounts. Not all eyewitness accounts are true. Again, everything has to be investigated one at a time. But could weird things like that be happening? Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, if you want to talk ley lines, talk to Jess. That's the ley line lady right over there. Yeah, all the paranormal stuff and everything we think is interconnected. So it looks like it's all separate, but orbs. Okay, so orbs are seen as, and I'm not talking about just dust particles on a photograph. Actual orbs are seen with paranormal events. They're seen with cryptozoological events, and they're seen with ufological events. So yeah, ufological. So anyway, but yeah, we think all of it's interconnected, but we don't know. Again, we're all struggling. We're the ones who are Looney Tunes who are out there going, I'm going to go collect evidence on, one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eaters, and that's fine, but we have to build the evidence case by case by case so that we have something that we can hand down to the next generation that wants to be a weirdo out there looking for those things. And we can say, see the progress we made, because the generations before us in the past 100 years didn't do that for us.
And the people who may and probably do know about all this stuff won't tell us. So I'll just drop it right there.
Government conspiracy.
Black eyed people.
The Men in Black. Yeah, with Black eyes. Yes.
Well, I guess that just about wraps everything up, so give them a round of applause.
If you guys have any more